Tree Country 1330 WTRE. It's 8:35, and it's time for our next guest.
Good morning.
We've got the fire chief in this morning. What's happening in the fire world?
It's getting busy. We've been extremely busy lately with unfortunately other people's emergencies as the weather seems to warm up. It seems like that our calls are increasing, and so obviously we watch that and see that, and then obviously look for other predictors and try to get messages out that are obviously poignant to the fact of distracted driving, just people in a hurry. It seems like the weather's nice, windows are down, we're driving faster. Unfortunately speed is dangerous, and you mix that with distracted driving at the same time, and we do unfortunately we've seen some tragic consequences because of that. So just watching out for that. We have a lot of open burning calls. It is illegal to burn trash. You can burn clean wood products, things like that. As long as in the city, you'll be very careful about that. Make sure you're respectful of your neighbors, and smoke and all that stuff is not very many leaves right now, but we have had people already trying to burn grass clippings and things like that, things that are kind of wet or moist in those piles. They just seem to smolder and not really burn, which then creates a lot of smoke, which then obviously gets the attraction of others. So we want to be very, very cautious about that. So it is a busy time. Obviously, we've had some chance run-ins with severe weather, and so obviously we've been very lucky with how that's turned out for us comparative to what the storms are and what those storms are producing. But making sure that as a consistent reminder that we are still in severe weather season, and that it is important that you have those type of plans and you have places to go should any type of severe weather, tornado, high winds, things like that, be coming this way or approaching us. So we definitely want to be careful about that.
I think too, it's important for families to have that plan so that your kids understand if certain things are going to happen. This is where we meet, and this, whether it's a tree outside or it's the basement, or depending on what that event might be.
Absolutely, and especially those with autism and other neurodivergent type disorders that don't react very well to sudden changes. It's best to practice those. The same like with exit drills for fire, for fire things in the home when the smoke detectors go off. While those are very loud and very scary to kids, making sure they have heard it before, they know what that is, and we can react appropriately. And then we do the try to make all the community events and interact with those. So obviously we're not total strangers when the time truly comes to have to use our services or need us, and obviously not seeing us every day, it still is very scary, but at least trying to help create some normalcy with that, and so there isn't that type of thing, because it is usually in a rush that you're gathering stuff to get out of the house, whether it's to beat a storm or the fire smoke detectors going off or something like that. So yeah, it's definitely important to not only like have one, but also to practice it, whether it's just speaking about it or it's actually practicing and physically doing it, and finding that home or finding that interior room or basement in your home that you can go to be safe from severe weather. Is obviously we've had those close calls coming. Making sure that your cell phones are charged, making sure that you have, weather apps, news apps, things like that will push alerts to alert you if you are in a place that you can't normally, get to, or that you can't hear an outdoor warning siren, or, power's out, there's no TV. So definitely things to prepare for now versus, be really just reactive to at the time.
It was springtime. You were talking about weather warming up and all of those kind of things, but also, being outside, kids playing, wandering, bodies of water, all of those kind of things you need to be alert and in tune with as we approach warm weather.
Absolutely. I mean, every time we get a call for a missing child, that is very, we're looking at maps, we're looking at areas of that, and unfortunately we tend to go to those areas and search those obviously first, because it is one of those things. We have a lot of our ponds are being fished in, which is great, but just make sure that if your kids are out fishing and you're not with them, where they're at, they have communication, or they have a friend with them, they just don't go by themselves. because it's those split-second decisions, it's those split-second things that happen, especially if you don't have anybody, nobody's driving by, you know, those are when true tragedies hit and things that could truly be avoided that are. So definitely one of those big things to get that message out, and we start that message today at right around 10:30 with our distracted driving crash at in the parking lot of Greensburg High School to allow the kids to see what happens when bad decisions are made or things go tragic. As well as any of the public is welcome to attend as well. That starts at around 10:15 a.m. On the west side parking lot, and we'll be bringing in a Lifeline helicopter, the coroner's office, Greensburg Police, Greensburg Fire. We'll be doing the full, and Decatur County EMS will be doing the full mock crash for obviously prom coming up this weekend. As well as just any type of distracted driving, any more, we still see intoxicated drivers, but we see a lot more distracted drivers, cell phones, eating, makeup, trying to, read, or, the cell phone thing. It's not just texting, you see people trying to watch videos, watch movies, things like that. Passing people, you'll see them with their phone where their speedometer is, watching sports or whatever the case may be. And, that's just not a good thing to do. Obviously, you're not going to be able to truly multitask and pay the attention that you need to pay, whether you're in the city or on the interstate. It doesn't matter. There's animals, roads, people, all of that. You just never know.
The unexpected. That's what you have to be prepared for.
Absolutely. And when you're buried into a phone and things like that, it is difficult. So one other thing that we're working on and partnering with the Lockmuller Group in a grant that was originally granted to Rushville that expanded to multiple counties is the Future 3 Together Towards Safety program. This is a survey that's online. You can go to our Facebook page, the city's Facebook page, and there's a QR code that you can submit concerns with State Road 3 from Henry County all the way down to State Road 3 and 421. And just the other day, Police Chief McNeely and I were part of a larger group that went and looked at the safety issues on State Road 3, actually to the Rush County line, as Greensburg Fire covers the auto extrication if necessary on those. And obviously, State Road 3 North has been a very, very big identified hot spot as a just dangerous road from fatalities to the actual dollar figure cost of what these crashes cost, insurance and people and everything else. And then, on the day we were doing it, is we had that unfortunate accident on State Road 3 South. And so we talked about that, and we talked about, incorporating South and looking at what things can we do and suggest for State Road 3 North, maybe that survey and that issue can truly kind of cover on State Road 3, and we can do. So these are grant-funded dollars. It's not costing the city anything to do this, and this report will go out as how to make State Road 3 safer that cities, communities can use, and that NDOT is a part of it, but it's not their grant, so it's even things they can use to say, hey, here's what we need to do to make State Road 3 safer. So we're having our first open house here in Decatur County on Thursday, May 8th from 4 to 7 at City Hall in our multi-purpose room. And the team from Lockmuller will be there to talk about the plan and how it came into action. They will show a dashboard. We have an online dashboard that you can report safety concerns on State Road 3, whether it's just the line of sight, whether it's a dip, whether it's no shoulders, whatever the case may be, or that you've personally been, or that there's been some serious accidents that need to be looked at, and obviously what is the contributing factor to those accidents, so we can try to make State Road 3 better. And then we've talked locally about when the report comes out is what type of those things can we look at internally and with the county on State Road 3 South, obviously because it is just as dangerous, and it doesn't maybe have the amount of traffic that State Road 3 North sometimes has, just because of people going to 46 or 74. But it's a very busy road. A lot of semi-traffic coming from US 50, and then obviously the gateway to Westport and south. So there's a lot of, just pedestrian, vehicles and passenger cars, things like that. And unfortunately, that's, those crashes usually involve one or two of the others, and we're in the season for farm implements, and that's another unexpected that we have to be expecting of is they're wide. They can't, sometimes get over if there's, ditches, and they're slow moving. And of course, in a very impatient world that we live in, it's tough to get behind a slow moving vehicle that, you have to stay behind for a long distance. And I'm sure you've seen that from the farm side as well. And, but it's extremely dangerous for not only for the farmer and the implements. Those implements will mess up a car very, very quickly.
I say the impact, I don't think people always realize that that equipment is huge, and it does not move lightly. So
No, it does not, and it's sturdy equipment. It's like a can opener sometimes, depending on what you have. So it's definitely not one of those things you want to face. But the impatience causes passing and causes some, typically sometimes erratic driving that. Will not result if tragedy would strike, will not result in really positive outcomes.
Have there been, and I know there'll be more come out as the study continues, but are there any specific attributes at this point to why 3 is as dangerous as it has become?
We did a site survey, and the things that the traffic team that studies this came up with is there's not a lot of like where people turn, like at State Road 3 and 300, 500. Those areas, there's not really a dedicated turn lane, or there's not like what I would consider like a passing bump that you can go around them as you go. That was identified. Line of sight issues because it is so hilly, and the dips, and you don't really think about it, but when you're standing there, you can hardly see vehicles that are in the low spots. And then driver speed, and then following too closely, which is things that the study can't control, but it can be an identifying factor to look at. The amount of vehicles that were traveling at interstate speeds plus and following what they would consider too closely was immense. We were in the city doing our thing, and we watched 3 people run red lights at including semis at State Road 3 and 421. So it was like that's and we know what happens. It happens a lot. It's just one of those things where luck's going to eventually run out. Somebody's not going to pay attention or be looking at, is anybody else coming, before you go if your light's green. Just because you have a green light doesn't mean go anymore. No, unfortunately not, so, it was good for those folks to see that, and they do the traffic studies. NDOT had a representative there as well, looking at, pedestrians on crossing Carver and things like that, coming from the apartments and all the homes out there going to the park and things like that, grocery store, making sure that we're what are we doing and how can we do that, and the city's investigating some things as well, but this kind of helps bring that about. This will help with grant dollars that we've had a study done already, and can hopefully make some decisions and hopefully help speed the process along of getting these things. Unfortunately, traffic collisions here in Decatur County on State Road 3 are high. We've had fatals on all aspects of State Road 3, at one point or another, and unfortunately, majority of they're all preventable. They're all preventable in some shape, form, or fashion, and whether it's human error, whether it's vehicle error, whether it's whatever, they are preventable, and that's what the study really aims to do is what can we engineer to help those preventable crashes.
Well, you brought a good point up about with the pedestrian traffic too, because I feel like even in this last year, I see more pedestrian traffic crossing the highway than I ever used to remember seeing.
For sure, and we talked about Carver, and then we talked about Broadway, and they both have their unique aspects. Of Carver's got residents and residential areas where Broadway has the restaurants, all of that, and as we bring those things in, more and more people, and the cost of fuel and the cost to keep up a vehicle is only getting more expensive. I think a lot more people go to just walking, especially when it's that close, and that's great. We like that. As medical providers, obviously the exercise is wonderful and the sunlight is great. However, you've got to be very cautious in crossing a 4.5, 5 lane, state highway that, whether or not there's a light there or not, that some people only use those as suggestions. So, it is to be very careful. Right now they've got, the pedestrian crossings up at Lincoln, and yeah, while it might be a further walk, use sidewalks, use those areas that are marked for you. Not saying that there still can't bad things can happen, but it's a lot, it helps you out a lot to have and use those things, because those pedestrian buttons are hooked into the traffic lights to get you those red lights so that you have a clear path to cross. But yes, I mean, I think, in the 5 years, 5.5 years that I've been here, yeah, just in that time, there's been a lot more people walking.
Yeah.
Even with our UTV ordinances and things like that, you still see probably just as many or even more people walking now, or using e-scooters, e-bikes, things like that are not protected, I would say, to get around. And so, not only is it on them to watch for their surroundings, it's also on those drivers to do that as well. And I mean, motorcycles are going to be the same thing as the weather warms up. We're going to start getting, poker runs, and guys and gals getting on their bikes and taking off for drives. And it's one of those things where, you do have to look out for that, because it's not, it definitely can come up and get you when you're least expecting it. And so, gets into our busy season for sure.
It does.
And unfortunately, and all seasons obviously can be busy. It's just depend on the hazard. But, these summer times are really where more people are involved. Most of the time the fires and things are down like that. Wintertime we see a lot of those, and those are structures where people live, which is still obviously important and dangerous. But it seems like the summertime we get a lot more person involved injuries and accidents and bad things that happen versus just property stuff.
We're also moving into more of the fire pit, weenie roast weather
Right.
as well.
Yes, and we get, burns, things like that, or, don't use gasoline to start your fires. We get that occasionally, or, don't leave them unattended with teenagers. People are like, oh, well, teenagers like to throw, aerosol bottles, things like that in there, and those will explode. And you don't want the metal or the fireball or anything else. So, burns are not fun. Any type of burn is not a good burn. And so, that usually is a trip to the burn center and a couple days there. And those are not pleasant experiences for those people. And so
A long recovery.
a very long recovery. And especially if it's your hands, things that you use daily, is those sensitive areas are very tough. And that skin never, they can get it back, but it never stretches. It's not going to be as elastic as it was. And so we want to definitely be very, very careful about that. And, soon we'll be into the fireworks, which is another interesting time for sure. So, it does never stop, but there's always safety messages to do. And so, that's one thing for our community cookouts. Our first one that we're actually cooking is going to be coming up here next month, May 8th. And we will be at, let's see here. We will be on Maureen at between Tara and Israel on May 8th from 6 to 8. So that'll be really our first cookout event. And so those are coming up. And again, it's that time where we can spread these messages and bring people together with fellowship and food, and make sure that they are watching out for distracted driving, making sure they are taking heed of what this is, and not just taking it for granted, and safely enjoying the nice weather, to make sure that obviously we can continue to celebrate and celebrate for years to come with the same people, and not tragically lose anybody to a truly accident that is preventable. That's the hardest thing. That's definitely the hardest thing, especially as you get older in this job, is the senselessness of some of the things that happen and how they could be prevented. So we definitely want to stress that to everybody, especially coming up on prom weekend. Phones down, eyes up.
Make good choices.
Yeah, absolutely. Make good choices. Allow your your friends are in the car with you. That's okay, but there's a time for horseplay and there's a time for not, and that's definitely not the time for horseplay for sure. And I'm sure we've all seen it, we've all experienced it, but unfortunately for somebody, their luck's gonna not be there, and that's the sad and tragic part of it.
Getting out into the community, doing the community cookouts, what's that been like for you? What have you taken away from doing those?
I think the fellowship, seeing the same people come over and over again, which is nice, knowing that it is a sense of enjoyment, a sense of things that that people look forward to. Has been really good. A chance just to talk in I say a non-threatening environment, just because usually when we're there for things, emotions are high, things are going on, and you can't. We're laser focused on what we're trying to do. The law enforcement's laser focused on what they're trying to do. Same for EMS and our other public safety partners. And this is a time where it's definitely much more relaxed. You really can accomplish so much over food.
Yes.
In a way, and having conversations and even disagreements that potentially are there in a non-threatening, non-violent way, because you are feeding them, you are extending that that olive branch, and while you're making sure that A, they're getting a nutritious meal, and two, that you are out there to say not everything is bad, not everything we do is it's our chance to give back. And I think that's one of the biggest things is because we obviously we're funded through tax dollars, and we need those tax dollars to continue to operate, and to continue to buy apparatus and things like this. And we do ask a lot of the community, and we have with our news stations and all of that stuff like that we do, and it is a public good. But it's really the giving back, you guys give, the community gives the city and the department a lot. This is a small token of our appreciation, and most everybody always says thank you to us, and this is our chance to really say thank you back.
I think the rapport that is built between the community and first responders, and it provides a better trust, even more so. You rely on them in that time of an emergency. I'm looking for you, but this gives them the ability to know that you're a normal person and able to just interact with you that way.
Absolutely, that showing that we're humans too. We have the same faults, and we have the same struggles that other humans do, and we don't cook everything just right. We might burn something. We might not. And showing just those little, hiccups like that, and showing, giving tours of the truck again to build that rapport, because, you want the community's backing. You want the community's support, should that ever, be truly necessary. You want those, people in your corner. We've all seen how social media can be, and opinions and everything else, and I think anything you can do to build that rapport and keep that on a positive note, and keep that support high, truly pays dividends in those times that you would really need to call on those individuals.
Well, thanks for being in with us this morning. I know you're headed out to the high school for the mock accident.
We are. Again,
a good time.
10:15 at the high school on the west side there, and community's welcome to watch as well. It'll be pretty much a sped up full crash. We do. I will say that we caution anybody that was personally involved or knows of, the recent crash on State Road 3. We're going to be recreating a crash scene. The coroner's office will be there, and we're sending that message of how bad distracted driving can be. But if you're still, hurting, if you're still having trouble processing, and we're personally involved with that crash this week, then I would urge you to stay away.
Yes. It's very impactful to see these.
It is. It is very impactful. It can be somewhat, activating to your mind to be like, however, it is a stark reality as well. This is what's going to happen. This is how things go. And lives can change, whether it's through an arrest, through death, through tragic injury. Things will never be the same. And it's sending that message to especially the kids, teenagers who sometimes are hard to reach. And I think you know sometimes you have to see what those consequences are to really get the full understanding of how bad it could be. So yeah, so 10:15, community's welcome to come out and see us, watch us work.
All right. Thanks
All
so much
right,
for
thank
being here. We'll
you.
see you next
All
month.
right.
It's 9 o'clock on Tree Country 1330.